So you probably know that two of the biggest things I like about Pokemon would be the shinies and the card game. And shiny Pokemon have been featured in the TCG since Generation 2. But with thousands and thousands of different Pokemon cards printed throughout the years, just how many shinies are there? Well, that's what I'm gonna try and find out today. We're gonna take a look at all time shiny Pokemon have been in the TCG. So, we begin with Generation 2 and Shining cards. The first set to include these cards would be Neo Revelation, with 2, being Shining Magikarp and Gyarados. Neo Destiny continues onward, with the famous Shining Charizard. There's also Shining Raichu. Shining Raichu may look a little strange to you, but that's because Shiny Raichu had completely different colors back in Generation 2, so it stays true to how it looked back then. As well as Raichu is Celebi, Kabutops, Tyranitar, Noctowl, Steelix, and Mewtwo. Mewtwo's colors also look different, with it being depicted as having a blue tail and yellow eyes. There was also a Shining Mew card that was released as a promo for CoroCoro magazine, but that card was never translated into English. Shinies didn't appear in the TCG again until midway through the Generation 3 sets. This time, they were featured as special Gold Star cards. They made their debut in the set EX Team Rocket Returns. These would be Gold Stars of the Hoenn starters, being Chico, Torchic, and Mudkip. EX Deoxys brought Gold Star Latios, Latias, and Rayquaza. The next set, EX Emerald, doesn't have any, but that's because EX Emerald itself is not a set that has a direct Japanese equivalent. It was released to coincide with the North American release of Pokemon Emerald, and was formed using unreleased Japanese cards from different sources. Anyhow, the next set, EX Unseen Forces, has the Entei, Raikou, and Suicune Gold Stars. EX Delta Species introduced Metagross, Groudon, and Kyogre Gold Stars. EX Legend Maker has Gold Stars of the legendary Golems. EX Holland Phantoms has Gyarados, Mewtwo, and Pikachu in Gold Star form. EX Crystal Guardians only has 2 Gold Stars, being Celebi and Alakazam. The second last of the Generation 3 sets, EX Dragon Frontiers, has 2 of the most sought after and expensive Gold Stars ever, being Charizard and Mew. And the final Generation 3 set, EX Power Keepers, has Gold Stars of all of the Generation 1 evolutions. There were actually a couple of Gold Stars outside of the regular sets though, being Umbreon and Espeon Gold Star. These 2 cards were part of Pop Series 5. The packs contained only 2 cards each and were handed out at Pokemon organized play events. These rare packs can now fetch upwards of $25 each, with the Gold Star Umbreon and Espeon being roughly 1 out of 40 packs. They are the most expensive English Gold Star cards ever made. The Japanese prints go for even more because they're holographic, while the English prints aren't. On to Generation 4. Generation 4 introduced shinies into the mix just before Platinum was released. Diamond and Pearl Stormfront set was the first to introduce these cards. There are 3, being Drifloon, Duskull, and Voltorb. They all fall under a different subset, which is abbreviated as SH at the bottom of the card. In all honesty, I'm not exactly sure what it stands for, but I've heard them be referred to as shiny hollows a few times. The next set, being Platinum, adds Lotad, Swablu, and Vulpix to the mix. Vulpix to the mix? Oh, sorry. For some reason, Rising Rivals doesn't have any, but Supreme Victors adds some stunning cards. There's Milotic, Relicanth, and Yanma! The last of the Platinum sets, being Garcius, rounds off this small subset of shinies with Bagon, Ponyta, and Shinx. I think that all of these cards are stunning, and I'd love to have a complete collection of them one day. But hey, Generation 4 isn't quite done when it comes to shinies just yet. The next set, Hot Gold and Soul Silver, featured the well-known Red Gyarados as a secret rare. After this though, we didn't see any more cards until the final set of Generation 4, being Call of Legends. Now for the most part, Call of Legends was a set full of reprinted cards. Well, at least they had different artwork. The same can't be said for Generations. But when it came to cards outside the set, we really were in for a surprise. There are a total of 11 cards featuring shiny legendary Pokemon in this set. In order, this would include Deoxys, Dialga, Entei, Groudon, Ho-Oh, Kyogre, Lugia, Palkia, Raikou, Rayquaza, and Suicune, making it the set with the most individual shiny Pokemon to date. And to round off Generation 4, we have the 3 tin promos featuring shiny versions of the legendary beasts. Generation 5 started to introduce shinies by its 4th set, being Next Destinies, with Emboar, Chandelure, Zoroark, and Hydreigon. These cards are proper secret rares that are outside the set, but not part of another subset, kind of like Heart Gold and Soul Silver's Gyarados. All of these cards have the text, "This extremely rare Pokemon is a different color than usual. It is very hard to find." The next set, Dark Explorers, picks up where Next Destinies left off and introduced 2 new shiny secret rares, being Gardevoir and Archeops. Dragons Exalted has Serperior, Reuniclus, Crocodile, and Rayquaza. This Rayquaza is actually a reprint of a Japanese Japanese promo that was also shiny, and based off the one from Pokemon Conquest, which itself is a reprint of a non-shiny promo included with Japan's Dragon Selection mini-set, which is of course what we know as Dragon Vault. The first of the Black and White 2 themed sets, Boundaries Crossed, introduced 3 more shinies, being Golurk, Terrakion, and Altaria. These secret rare shinies were the first ones to include a golden textured border. All of the previous ones had retained the regular yellow one. Next up is Plasma Storm, which of course has shiny versions of Charizard and Blastoise. The second of the Plasma sets, Plasma Freeze, has Empoleon, Sigilyph, Garbodor, and Garchomp of all Pokemon. Why they did this, I'll never know. The final set to include these shinies would be Plasma Blast, with Execute, Virizion, and Dusknoir. All of these shiny secret rares were actually reprints of non-shiny versions featured in earlier Black and White sets. For example, Empoleon from Plasma Freeze was originally a holo in Dark Explorers, and Altaria was a holo in Dragons Exalted. The final shiny cards of Generation 5 would be these 2 shiny Genesect cards. They're both the same, but they feature different artwork. The first one was released with a red Genesect collection box, while the second was featured as a freebie with the DVD of Genesect and the Legend Awakened film. And now, we get into the generation of Pokemon cards that has just about ended. The first inset shinies in Generation 6 came in the form of 3 full art secret rares in Ancient Origins, being Primal Groudon and Kyogre, as well as Mega Rayquaza. All 3 of these cards are of course reprints of the same non-shiny cards from Primal Clash and Roaring Skies, but obviously with entirely different artwork. Just 2 sets later, Shiny Gyarados is the main Pokemon featured in the set Breakpoint. This shiny got a whopping 5 cards in one set, including its EX, Mega EX, their full arts, and the secret rare. The next set, Generations, randomly had a shiny Mega Gardevoir full art. I don't know why, considering the regular one wasn't even shiny, but we'll be seeing more from Gardevoir soon. Or right now, really. 2 sets later, Steam Siege put a heavy emphasis on shiny Pokemon, like no other set has. It reintroduces Dual-type Pokemon, which we hadn't seen since Generation 3. All Dual types also happen to be shiny. Steam Siege has another shiny Mega Gardevoir EX, and a full art, which like the Generations print wasn't actually shiny to begin with, so it gets confusing. Then there's Mega Steelix in its full art, which like Gardevoir magically becomes shiny after Mega evolving. I don't get it either. But there are quite a few more. Holos wise, there's Shiftry and Bishop. In terms of regular rares, there's Volcarona and Galvantula. The Galvantula really doesn't look like a shiny, but apparently it's meant to be, so that's that. If the thought of getting a shiny as a regular rare isn't insane enough to you, Steam Siege has a shiny Azumarill Uncommon. An Uncommon! Why? But to round off Generation 6, we've got a ton of promos. And I mean a ton. The last few years, Pokemon have really been marketing shinies, so there are promos left and right. First up is Shiny Mega Gengar, which I can forgive because it's easily one of the best shiny Megas and it would be a terrible shame if a shiny card wasn't made of it. It was released as a Pokemon Center promo way back in September of 2014, and it didn't make it over here until late 2016 in the form of a Lunchbox promo. Then there's Shiny Metagross EX in its Mega, which was likely released to coincide with the Shiny Beldum event on the release of Oras. Shiny Xerneas and Evoltalk cards were also released as Tim promos. A previous Rayquaza EX promo was reprinted and made shiny, then put into another collection box. Jumbo versions of the shiny Primals and Mega Rayquaza have also been put into collection boxes, as did shiny Mega Gyarados, though that was only for Europe. The US got a figure instead. Inside the same box is a different shiny Gyarados promo. In Target, there was a shiny Magikarp promo too. Another shiny Rayquaza card was released as a promo in commemoration of the Skytree Pokemon Center opening. There was also a card of Pikachu in shiny Rayquaza cosplay, but I don't really know if that counts. But to wrap up, we'll take a look at a couple of shiny lookalikes. These are cards that have artwork that makes a Pokemon look shiny, but isn't officially stated to be shiny. The first of which would be this Palkia Level X promo. This thing is so pink it's ridiculous. And while Starly really is not the most noticeable shiny in the world, its cards from Stormfront and Supreme Victors have always given me a serious shiny vibe. We've got Ancient Origins Gardevoir Holo, which is much more reminiscent of its shiny form. And we're gonna round off with Mysterious Treasure's Choopy card. Pichu. You may know that I named my random shiny Pichu in Pokemon Sun after the strange attack on this card, but when I took a closer look, it seriously looks shiny. More often than not, Pichu is portrayed as being of a pale yellow color and having cheeks of some shade of pink, but this Pichu has a yellowish-orange body and red cheeks. It looks more vibrant than the actual shiny, or at least in Gen 6 and 7. It looked a lot better before, but that's a different discussion entirely. If you can think of any more, then let me know. But that's it for all shiny Pokemon featured in the TCG. I think I got them all. Generation 7 looks to be very exciting TCG-wise, but if we're following trends set by previous generations, we likely won't see any shinies featured until a few sets in. But it certainly is something to look forward to. For more Pokemon card trivia videos, there's my video covering Pokemon card eras if you're interested. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!